And did he do it? First up, Kim Porter's book, Welcome to the Court of Public Opinion, along with Al B. Sure's accusations or call for investigation by the FBI, the CIA, Homeland Security, any and all cops in the Los Angeles area. He wants Kim Porter's body exhumed, right? He wants her dug back up, and he wants the autopsy to be performed again. He said he has been talking about this for years. For years, he was telling you guys the danger that she was in. For years, he was telling you guys about how it was some dangerous activities going around and people were being killed, and that no one believed him. They all told him that he was crazy. And in fact, he alluded to the fact, allegedly, that his near-death experience was not by happenstance. Shatan Turner, can you talk to us about this issue of getting a body brought back out of the ground? He was only her girlfriend. He wasn't married to her. Is he allowed to do that? Is that legal?
No. And this whole Diddy, suspected murder, suspected attempted murder, there are rumors that he was involved in Albie Shore's and Kim's, potentially in Jamie Foxx's, like all of these rumors. At some point, it's just hard to keep track of them. And everybody's trying to make Diddy out like he's the boogeyman. I mean, it's clear that he wasn't a good guy, but as it relates to the Kim Porter one, that makes me particularly sad because I think she loved him. And this book suggests that she was being tormented by him, which comes as no surprise now that we've seen what happened to Cassie. Now, if you believe somebody's death is a function of misconduct, right? And that's what Al B. Sure is alleging. It's like, hey, if only you exhume the body and take a closer look, you will find that foul play occurred. I believe he's trying to suggest that maybe it was some sort of chemical substance that they might find in a toxicology report, which they might not have run initially because they weren't suspicious that that was at play. So here's one other thing for the algorithms you need to understand is that when autopsies are run and post-mortem testing are conducted, it's all a function of what they suspect. They're not just running everything to find out if something that they're not suspicious of occurred. So in this case, Al's saying, look, I told you he was dirty. He was dirty, and y'all didn't look for the right stuff, so exhume the body. The problem is Al is merely a mortal who has no rights, right? He loved her, but he has no rights. His son, Justin, though, because Kim wasn't married, what likely exists in the statute where she dies is that there's a hierarchy of decision makers who have rights based on her death, and her son would have likely been her decision maker unless she had some sort of advance directive to the contrary, indicating that someone else should make her decisions. And so if Al wants to do more than just be seen in the spotlight based on this story, not to say that Al is trying to pimp this story, but let's say, when's the last time Al had a hit? Okay. So he may be trying to use this to remain in the public eye, but where he would be better served is to talk to his son, even though his son was adopted by Diddy, talk to his son and then have his son, decide what he's going to do because he's likely the person who has the legal rights.
Legal Beagle Turner, I think you're right. When I was at the White House at the Black Excellence luncheon, Al and his son was there, and they spent a lot of time. Yes, they were there, and
he spent an invite. He is not excellent.
You mean Al B. Sure?
Al B. Sure. Yeah, Al B. Sure.
Al B. Sure is like a legend in the DMV. His manager's in the DMV. He's done a lot of community outreach in the DMV. So I'd see Al B. Sure actually at a lot of DMV events, White House events, other social events at, surrounding and people of influence in the Washington, D.C. area. I shared all that to say, I like the fact that here we unpack the fact that it's Quincy, right?
Justin.
Justin is his son.
No, Quincy. It's Quincy.
No, Quincy's his son. He's the taller one. He has blonde hair now. I think that if Al B. Sure really wants to figure out what's going on with Kim, he should convince his son to stand with him. and the two of them asked to have her body re-examined and asked for the right things to be looked for. I think it's a great idea. Listen, at the end of the day, I would rather that entire family be safe than sorry, right? Especially if Albie Shore is purporting that there was some, weird stuff going on as it related to his case.
The problem is if Quincy rocks the boat, he's not getting any of the millions that might be left. We have to remember Diddy's not dead, right? So it's not like there could be a will that would leave money depending on, as long as Diddy is alive, and even if he's alive and behind bars, if he decides he don't like you, he don't want you to have a dime, you're not getting nothing.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because this is what I've always wanted to know. Quincy would be considered adopted, right? Even though he may be the oldest, he would be considered amongst the oldest in the hierarchy, right? Because it's a hierarchy in your family, unless the father, creates some type of trust, and then you have an executor of the trust, or if you have, a conservative or something, it usually goes by the age of the children. Would Quincy, because he was adopted, would his rank, because he's the oldest, place him at the forefront of getting the Diddy fortunes?
No. Well, no, he wouldn't. And also, just to be clear, we're not sure that Quincy was actually adopted. There's a lot of ghetto stuff happening amongst these people, and it may have been like informal. I have yet to see any documentation. Adoption documentation is public information, and I feel like at this point, if that had happened, TMZ or some other site would have
revealed it. Okay, so let's just take it out of the equation, because now that I think about it, his oldest daughter may be the oldest. But let's say that Quincy was the oldest of all of Diddy's kids, but they're not his biological kids, but it's his adopted kid. Would that child still have that hierarchy on the estate of running the estate or getting whatever the estate has to them first?
Most likely,
age doesn't matter. If anything, it's the opposite. It's the children, any minors would be entitled to more, assuming there's no will. Minors would be entitled to more because, as you know, minors are required to have your supervision.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going. Let's talk about this Kim Porter book. This Kim Porter book is driving me crazy. There's so many copies and versions. There's a fake version. We think it's a 60-page version. I was watching someone online today where there was a young lady talking about, in her book, she's talking about Jay-Z, Sean, the other Sean, having relations with P. Diddy. How is it legal that people can just put out all these books? There's no fact checking. There's a whole bunch of fear mongering. People are buying all the books, making them number one best sellers. But we don't know who wrote them, and we don't know if it's true or not. What's this about?
I've done a little research on this. What?
I said, blame it on the dead girl. That's what they're doing. Like, Al, you're talking about who's going to get sued based on these potential misrepresentations. And so I think part of the reason they're blaming it on the dead girl is because she's gone, right? They're saying that
you can't prove it.
Yeah.
Well, here's what we can prove. We can prove that Jamal T. Millwood is not a person. He does not exist. That is the alleged author of this book. Who it is this white boy who goes by the alias of Chris Todd. Who is Chris Todd? An unrespected, alleged Hollywood investigative reporter. Okay, he's never on CNN. He's never on any legitimate shows. He did a memoir alleging to know exactly who O.J. Simpson's accomplice was. This is the kind of work that he does. He does these sketchy tell-alls that are not fact-checked by any legitimate sources, that are juicy, and where he sells these copies on this black market. This book was like printed somewhere in Coppell, Texas, up the street from my parents' house. Like, who cares? Like, this is not a legitimate publication. The other thing, though, that I do want to note is, so some people are saying they think that this Caucasian gentleman, Chris Todd, I bring up the race simply because I found it very interesting that of the aliases he chose a very black sounding alias, Jamal Millwood, right? Not just Jamal T. Millwood, okay, instead of Christopher Todd. Christopher Todd has also been sued in multiple instances for drafting or for releasing tell-alls, books, things like that, that others have said contained libel, slander, and were untrue. Well, interestingly, though, Sloan Bella, the psychic, who was correct in regards to other things that she anticipated would happen with respect to Diddy, including that he'd be sued, blah, blah, blah. Sloan Bella allegedly has stated that Kim did have a jump drive, that she shared it with 3 people, and that one of the 3 was a Caucasian man. So, who knows?
Ooh, this is getting juicy. So which book is the book that is closely tied to her memoirs? So is a 60-page one. This one.
Yes, it's written on a 3rd grade level.
Bailiff, can I see the title of the book again? Kim's Lost Words. Okay, I don't believe it.
Yeah, look at that. Okay. I could have made that cover on Canva.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I believe. I don't know that I believe that, but I tell you, the way that it's spreading all over the internet. Whew. All right, let's keep it moving. Next up, as it relates to
Honor. Oh, you had asked the question of legally, can they do this? The answer is no. If that jump drive really truly existed, the only person with the right to release it would be her estate. So that would be one of her kids or the executor of her will. It belongs to the estate, so he's going to be in big trouble if this was in fact her jump drive, and that he's getting profits without giving it to the estate.
Okay, so what happens if someone stole it?
They're even more trouble. Then it's theft, and it's theft of something so private. It's invasion of privacy. It's a plethora of things, and in that, it could even be criminal. They go to jail.
And what about the instances where we hear she gave it to 3 people? She physically gave it to 3 people and told them if anything happens to her that she gives them the permission to share it. What happens in those cases?
That's permissible, but the money, the profits from that book have to go to the estate.
Go back to her estate. Okay, sounds good. All right, let's keep it moving. Talking about estates, a whole lot of CEOs are stepping down this week. Many are saying it's because of the Diddy situation and him going to jail and not making bail. One of our favorites over